Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Lethbridge police with guns drawn were involved in a high-risk incident outside of a downtown business. We have the details. The Alberta government announced a multi-million-dollar initiative to help accelerate carbon capture technology. And for the first time ever, a major powwow competition is taking place inside of the Saddle Dome during the Calgary Stampede. We have the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Lethbridge police were at the scene of a high-risk incident on Thursday afternoon. It occurred by a business on 5th Street and 4th Avenue South in the Wallace Block area. Details are sketchy at this point, but according to witnesses, it was a car chase that ended with a female suspect getting out of a vehicle and taking a hostage. Police with guns drawn were trying to negotiate with the suspect. According to another witness, a flash bomb was released, shots were allegedly fired, and the suspect was taken into custody. A female employee who was taken hostage inside of the building sustained life-threatening injuries and was taken to hospital. We will have more details for you as soon as they become available. A Lethbridge gymnastics coach has been charged with sexual assault and sexual interference of a minor. It's alleged that 33-year-old Jamie Ellicott assaulted a 7-year-old girl between May and June while the child was attending sessions at the Lethbridge Gymnastics Academy. He was charged without incident on Tuesday and is to have no contact with the victim or have any contact with anyone under the age of 16 unless they're with an adult. Police say so far no one else has come forward or been identified. The investigation into the matter continues. A number of Canadian farmers and ranchers are throwing their support behind producers in the Netherlands who are protesting their own government. They say it is a government which wants to see farmers cut down on their fertilizer and ammonia counts and allegedly wants farmers to lose some of their livestock, all in the name of climate change. Alex Van Herk is a Fort Macleod farmer who is part of the convoy heading from Ponoka, Alberta to High River along Highway 2 to show his support behind the Netherlands farmers. He says it's important to bring awareness and to show solidarity with those in Europe.
I mean, we're farmers here as well, right? And we're a second, third generation farm here in Fort Macleod. And, you know, the impacts of these emission reductions, what they're trying to do with the nitrogen and ammonia, is going to cause a food shortage, right? And long-term effects is going to be huge. And people don't realize how important that is, that we need to have that nitrogen ammonia to grow our crops. And that kind of reduction in fertilizer is going to be a huge impact.
The Alberta government announced 11 new carbon capture projects to help accelerate lower emissions for the future. Environment and Parks Minister Whitney Isaac says $40 million will be allocated to support carbon capture expansion, along with utilization and storage projects across the province.
Now, these projects are focused on advancing Alberta's position as an innovative and environmentally responsible energy leader. Projects we're celebrating today span a wide range of industries, from electricity and oil and gas to fertilizer, cement, and forest products. These projects reach across the province, including the Industrial Heartland, Medicine Hat, and just off the Trans-Canada Highway at Eggshaw. If the funding helps determine that these projects are scale-ready and viable, it could lead to more than $20 billion in capital expenditures. That will create thousands of jobs and cut almost 24 million tons of emissions each year.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says Albertans are getting ripped off when it comes to the carbon tax rebate. Now, to discuss this in more detail is the Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, Franco Terrazzano, who joins us now from Ottawa. Franco, you say that we here in Alberta are not getting our fair share?
Well, the feds aren't telling the whole truth to Canadians about their carbon tax scheme. The Trudeau government claims that families will be made better off from their carbon tax and rebate. But the Parliamentary Budget Officer's numbers show that the government is using magic math. The carbon tax will cost the average Alberta household $671 this year, even after accounting for the rebate. But that big tax bill is only getting bigger because in total, the carbon tax will cost the average Alberta household $13,000 from now all the way through 2030, even after accounting for the rebates. Again, that's according to the PBO. So we're talking about a very punishing tax to the Alberta families who've been struggling for many years now.
Thanks so much, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa. By the way, those rebate checks he was chatting about should be arriving very soon. There are 6 candidates vying to become the new leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Dr. Leslyn Lewis is one of those who's looking to lead the federal Conservatives. Bridge City News had a special one-on-one interview with Dr. Lewis, who says she has a solid plan to help our province's oil and gas sector should she become leader and eventually Prime Minister.
We want to be able to uplift ourselves and rebound out of COVID. And one way of doing that is to start developing our natural resources, because for every resource job that's created, there are 7 splinter jobs created all around the country, whether they're in the steel industry, whether they're in the banking industry, in the transportation industry, in the resource development industry. These industries all benefit from our oil and gas sector.
Make sure you catch the special one-on-one interview with CPC leadership hopeful Dr. Leslyn Lewis coming up after Business News. Well, the greatest outdoor show on earth continues, and for the first time, there's a powwow competition taking place inside of the Saddle Dome during the Calgary Stampede. Dancers and drummers from across North America are participating in the special event.
Well, this is the first powwow that we're hosting here at the Saddle Dome. We do have a powwow competition over at the Elbow River Camp, but this year we brought it to the Saddle Dome and are hoping that the success that we've had at the village comes over here. Over the next 2 days, you're going to see some of the world's top dancing, some of the world's top drumming, top staff that are brought in to run the powwow, coordinate the powwow. Powwows are important to our culture because it's our way here in the traditional Treaty 7 area to show people our culture, to share our culture, and to educate. A powwow for us is a celebration. It's not a ceremony. It's a way for us to get together and celebrate life, celebrate changing of the seasons, celebrate our kids.
That's a lot of color. Beautiful. Quebec students were welcomed to Lethbridge College on Thursday to participate in a teepee raising event. These students are part of the Explore Bursary program. Now, the bursary includes accommodations with students staying at Lethbridge College residences or with local families. English language learning and cultural workshops take place for the students on the weekdays, and on weekends, they get a chance to visit some cool areas like Riding on Stone Provincial Park, Fort Whoop-Up, and Waterton Lakes National Park.
Coming here was really a good experience because I come from Montreal, Quebec, and it's more of like a city with like skyscrapers, buildings everywhere. And here I really see like the nature of things. It's very beautiful. You're like, you walk and you don't see just buildings everywhere. There's trees, there's grass, and like especially the Riding on Stone thing, that was very beautiful with like the rocks, the sandstones. So it's really a different experience, and I really appreciate it. And today we built this teepee with the Blackfoot Nation, and it was very nice experience. I really liked it.
A lot of these students are already post-secondary students, so they're learning a lot of everyday English at 2 different levels. Some of them are advanced and some of them are in intermediate. And they're learning things about socializing, about Lethbridge culture, about things that they can use in their everyday life and to enhance their programming and enhance their English course and English abilities as they go forward.
Hopefully they get a chance to learn some Blackfoot as well, like Oki. The program is funded by Canadian Heritage and administered by the Council of Ministers of Education of Canada. Now, since its launch back in 1971, thousands of Canadians have been given the opportunity to learn their second official language. A heat warning was issued by Environment Canada earlier today for much of southern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is back from the Calgary Stampede and is in with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, those hot temperatures look like they may be sticking around for a while.
Yeah, they sure will be, Hal. It is a scorcher out there. 32 degrees is what we reached as a high today with a humidex of 33. Same thing in store for tomorrow, Friday. Looking at a high of 32 with that high humidex. Same thing over the weekend. And in fact, Environment Canada saying over the next few days, daytime highs 32, overnight lows only about 16, meaning we're going to stay pretty warm into the evening. And Therefore, they have issued us that heat warning in effect. So we could see a little bit of a reprieve, though, coming up on Monday with some showers. I'll have all those details coming up for you later on in the show.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. This heat can be unbearable for so many people, and many don't have access to shelter or a cooling center to help with the heat. There's a citywide water bottle drive taking place. Now, especially with the recent tent encampments, the Interfaith Food Bank hopes this will provide some much-needed help to those who need water, but say they're also lacking in donations.
Even to have water available when we are asking people to move out of the encampments is something that will offer a sense of relief and safety. So if we are taking away their ability to at least stay out of the sun, if we have the opportunity to keep them hydrated, that's a step in the right direction. So when we're feeling hot, we think about the fact that we have a nice cool basement to head into or whatnot, whereas a lot of other people wouldn't. And that's when we see our donations flood in. So until this point, we have had the heat, but it hasn't felt excruciatingly warm. And so we've had to use a lot of financial money to go out and buy the water because it hasn't been coming in vast quantities as of yet.
Those who are interested in donating can deliver the water directly to the Interfaith Food Bank. Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgins says he's heard concerns from those in our community regarding the tent encampments. He says he's concerned that sites pose a risk to the health of our community. He says a compassionate cleanup effort is underway.
City Council knows the only way out of this cyclical encampment situation is with transitional and permanent supportive housing. This is why I'm bringing forward an official business motion to City Council's next meeting on July 26th to discuss what we can do now to find a constructive, compassionate way to work through this complex situation. The resolution will look to act on what we can do as a City Council immediately to help stop the encampments from happening, and what we can do in the long term to get the housing and resources we need from the provincial government and to not become a tax burden on our residents.
Barbecue lovers are in for a very special treat. The Smoke, Wind and Fire event showcases the best in barbecue culture during a 2-day meat smoking extravaganza. Now, the Lethbridge District and Exhibition and Alberta Pork are partnering together on this very special event. Video journalist Micah Quinn has the details on the event that features a sterling Alberta barbecue business.
We did compete last year, and it was really fun. It was our first competition.
Barbecue Masters Hickory Street will be taking part in Smoke, Wind and Fire in the Backyard Barbecue Contest, and the co-owner and pitmaster of the restaurant, Devin Bone, will be working her magic during the Masters Series competition.
A Masters competition means you compete in 4 different meats, chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket. Brisket can take 12, 18 hours. It just depends. So it's an all-night adventure. It's really exciting. It's very well done, and Kansas City Barbecue Society has rules and everything, and they follow those rules and regulations in Lethbridge, and it makes it really fun.
Bone says the event helps legitimize barbecuing in southern Alberta.
And getting to walk around and see all the other pitmasters and talk to them, it really gives the community in southern Alberta the ability to see firsthand, up close, what it's like to be a pitmaster and to get excited about low and slow cooking.
Smoke, Wind and Fire brings in world-class competitors, but the public is also welcome to participate and learn more about barbecuing. Mike Morganton, the CEO of the Lethbridge and District Exhibition, outlined a few of the other things to expect during Smoke, Wind and Fire.
There's the backyard competition for chicken and ribs that runs on Saturday. We still encourage anyone who has become the backyard master pit boss, show off your stuff and for your chance to compete for those local bragging rights. There's going to be entertainment. There's going to be a beer gardens. We're building the event from last year, and we only look for this one to grow into the future.
The festivities for Smoke, Wind and Fire will take place on July 23rd and will run until the 24th at the Lethbridge and District Exhibition in the South Pavilion parking lot. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
You know, when it comes to our overall health, it is vital to incorporate mushrooms into our diets. That's according to naturopath and owner of Urban Apothecary, Cami Tanner. Tanner says there are a lot of healing properties in mushrooms that can be extremely beneficial for people.
All mushrooms are very healing, but mushrooms have different healing properties and aspects to it. Like I said, lion's mane is for the brain. Reishi mushroom is really good for helping with stress and anxiety and also for liver support function. So there are hundreds of varieties of mushrooms. They all do their own special thing and unique thing to the body.
Catch the full interview with Cami Tanner from Urban Apothecary, who discusses the healing properties of a number of food groups, coming up later in our program. Highland Park, Illinois held a vigil on the lawn of City Hall to remember and honor the 7 victims who who were killed after a gunman opened fire and shot more than 70 rounds into the crowd during the city's 4th of July parade.
Well, I'm so proud of our community for coming together. I wish it were not because of a tragic act of violence. The July 4th mass shooting was the bloodiest day we have ever experienced in Highland Park, caused by a hateful and cowardly individual who opened fire with an assault weapon during our annual July 4th hometown tradition. 7 individuals were senselessly murdered, dozens more were injured, and countless numbers of our children and community members have been traumatized.
The leaders of Israel and the United States aired their differences on how to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons, even as U.S. President Joe Biden pledged his ironclad commitment to Israel's security.
We mean what we say. They have an opportunity to accept this agreement's been laid down. If they don't, we made it absolutely clear. We will not, let me say it again, we will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. I continue to believe that diplomacy is the best way to achieve this outcome.
Words will not stop them, Mr. President. Diplomacy will not stop them. The only thing that will stop Iran is knowing that if they continue to develop their nuclear program, the free world will use force.
Now here's a scary video of a new pilot aspiring to be a commercial airline pilot showing off his skills when he was forced to land his plane on a North Carolina highway, narrowly missing cars and power lines. The pilot was forced to make the emergency landing after his engine died.
Because there was nowhere to land. So fortunately, I looked at him and I think I told him I loved him and that I was sorry for putting him in this situation. That's when he looked at me and he said, I love you too. You do the best you can when you're trained, and I have complete trust in you. And that from there on, I was just like, game on. Let's get down alive. Let's make it out of this alive. And it's like a mountain, and then it's Highway 19, mountain, and then Highway 19 sits here, and then it's mountainous. So it was just sitting right there, but you could not see it. So I'm like, that's our road. That's our road. Then I see these 2 cars there, and I know, I can't land behind them because the aircraft is just going to hit them. So I know I gotta dip it down and get some more speed and get in front of them.
Flooding in the remote regions of southwestern Virginia left more than 100 homes damaged and around 40 people unaccounted for. Police say many of the locals may have been in areas that are difficult to reach. So far, fortunately, no deaths have been reported. First responders in the Buchanan County region received a number of reports of rising water and extensive damage following a torrential rainstorm on Tuesday night. Several small communities in the Virginia county that borders West Virginia and Kentucky were affected. Well, here in southwestern Alberta, Environment Canada issued a heat warning earlier today. It was another scorcher in Lethbridge. How long will the hot temperatures last? We shall have the answer to that question in just a moment. My family and friends in southern Ontario always remind me that the heat here in Alberta is a dry heat and we don't have the humidity they experience in Hamilton or Toronto, so it's not quite as bad. Jeanette Rocher is in now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it may be a dry heat, but it was hot enough for Environment Canada to issue a heat warning.
Well, and not only that, Hal, but our Humidex has been sitting at 33. So maybe tell your friends back east that we're not always overly dry here in southern Alberta. But yes, you're right. Heat warning has been issued for Lethbridge and surrounding area, most of southern Alberta. So a daytime high sitting at 32 degrees. We're looking at that for Friday, Saturday. Overnight lows only sitting at 16, 15. So overnight low tonight, 16 overnight. Friday night, 15 down to 12 on Saturday night. Sunday, we're looking at a high of 27 degrees under sunny skies. There's that reprieve, though, I was talking about earlier. On Monday, high of 24 degrees, looking like a chance of showers there. And then back up to the heat on Tuesday, 33, sunshine, sunny skies on Wednesday, and high of 31. So we are definitely higher than our average high for this time of year, which is 26, average low 10. 35 was our high temperature on this day back in 1953, and in 2005 we were sitting at 5 degrees. 5:39 is when our sun rose this morning, and the sun set this evening, 9:35 p.m. And you know what that means? It means we're under 16 hours of daylight now. Now we're at the 15 hours and 56-minute mark. So there you go. Days getting shorter. Victoria sitting at 20 degrees, partly cloudy skies, a little cooler on the coast there, a little more windy as well. 22 degrees in Vancouver with partly cloudy skies, sitting at humidex and a UV index of 8. 28 in Edmonton and 31 degrees in Calgary. Calgary also sitting under a heat warning there. 35 the high in Saskatoon tomorrow. Looking at showers, possibility of a risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon. Regina, same thing. Looking at sunshine in the morning, clouds in the afternoon. 32 the high, risk of a thunderstorm. 29 the high in Winnipeg. Now in Winnipeg, their humidex sitting at 35, so really hot in Winnipeg. 27 the high in Toronto. Same thing for Ottawa. Same thing for Montreal. So we're seeing consistent temperatures there. Lots of sunshine. Humidex, so it's going to be humid and a high UV index as well. 25 in Fredericton tomorrow with a partly cloudy sky. Showers expected tomorrow in Halifax with high of 26. 19 only in Charlottetown, the high tomorrow. Showers there. 23 the high in St. John's, Newfoundland, and looking at the possibility of some drizzle and showers there as well. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Stats Canada says manufacturing sales fell 2% to $71.6 billion in May. Analysts say it was due to a steep decline in motor vehicle sales. It is the first drop after 7 straight monthly gains. Sales in the motor vehicle industry fell 31.9% to $3.3 billion. Officials say the drop was due to retooling at auto assembly plants and semiconductor part shortages. Higher prices helped sales in the petroleum and coal industry rise 5.4% to a record $10.9 billion. Starbucks is closing 16 locations around the U.S. because of repeated safety issues, including drug use and other behaviors that are threatening staff. Union members, however, say 2 of the closures impact stores that have voted to unionize, which the coffee giant opposes.
And I think that is part of the problem, is that they're trying to shut down my store, 505 Union, in Olive Way, because we have so many strong and outspoken union organizers. They want it to be a chilling thing for other stores to see. They're acting like a cornered animal, frankly. They're acting like they're desperate, and they're just hoping that they can stop it now before it gets to be too late.
Twitter is suing Tesla CEO Elon Musk to force him to complete the $44 billion acquisition of the social media company. Musk and Twitter have been bracing for a legal fight since the billionaire said he was backing off of his April agreement to buy the company. Musk said Twitter executives failed to give him a number as to how many fake accounts and bots were on the site. Twitter, meanwhile, accuses Musk of violating the agreement because the deal he signed no longer serves his personal interests. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 286 points on the day to finish at 18,329. The Dow was down 142 points to 30,630. The S&P 500 was down 11 points to 3790. And the Nasdaq was up 3 points on the day to 11,251. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 14 cents to 96.44 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to 6.65 U.S. Gold was down 6 cents to 17.0989 U.S. an ounce, and silver was up 3 cents to 18.46 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.38 per bushel, barley's at $8.82, canola's at $19.05, and corn is at $10.97 per bushel. Live cattle August contract was down $1.48 to $135.40. Feeder cattle August contract was down $1.90 to $178.90. And lean hogs July contract was up 43 cents to $114.93. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 76.24 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, Lethbridge police were at the scene of a high-risk incident earlier today. It occurred by a business on 5th Street and 4th Avenue South in the Wallace Block area. Now, details are sketchy at this point, but according to witnesses, it was a car chase that ended with the suspect getting out of a vehicle and taking a hostage. Now, this is unconfirmed again. Police with guns drawn were trying to negotiate with a suspect. According to another witness, a flash bomb was released, shots were fired, and the suspect was taken into custody. A female employee who was taken hostage sustained life-threatening injuries and was taken to hospital. We'll have more details for you as soon as they become available regarding the incident. Coming up, we have an exclusive interview with CPC leadership candidate Leslyn Lewis, who explains why she's in full support of Alberta's energy sector and outlines her plan of sticking up for Canadians. That Q&A is on deck. But first, here's a look at some of the special events taking place right here in southwestern Alberta.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Gate Christian Church and City Light Church in Lethbridge are partnering together to host a powerful night of worship with Canadian Christian songwriter and anointed worship leader Brian Dirksen. This special event is taking place Saturday, July 16th at City Light Church, beginning at 7 p.m. Seating is limited. Tickets are $25 and are available for purchase at eventbrite.com. Simply search Brian Dirksen. All are welcome. For more information, visit thegate.org/what's happening or go to citylightchurch.ca/events. This summer, the Lethbridge Shakespeare Performance Society returns to the outdoor theater, Shakespeare in the Park. This year, they present one of William Shakespeare's most famous plays, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. More than just a play about revenge, Hamlet deals with the questions about life, love, death, and betrayal. Come for an evening of dramatic entertainment every Thursday in July at Casa Plaza, beginning at 7:30 p.m. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
The federal Conservatives are choosing their new leader on September the 10th. Around 500,000 CPC party memberships were sold by the 6 candidates vying to become the new Conservative leader. Pierre Poilievre's camp said they led the way with around 312,000 memberships sold. Leslyn Lewis's group also sold a number of memberships, and Dr. Leslyn Lewis joins us now from Haldimand, Norfolk County. Welcome to Bridge City News, Dr. Lewis.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you today.
So where did you receive the biggest response when it came to memberships sold by your team? Was it here in Western Canada, where you are in Central Canada?
Well, I think it was more based on issues. And so it was more focused on issues that related to freedom and sovereignty and our economy and pro-life issues. So we found that people were gravitating around these issues that they felt that governments weren't dealing with effectively. And so they gravitated to our camp.
Were those a lot of the potential voters more so in Western Canada? Where did you sell more of the memberships, or in Central Canada?
I would say that they were spread out all over the country. And as you know, I did very, very well in Western Canada, but we found that this election cycle, that people were more focused, not really on regional issues per se, but more on issues that pertained to the unity of the country and the prosperity of the nation.
Now, a number of political experts say this race is really Pierre Poilievre's to lose. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think it's the members' race. It's who the members are going to rally behind. And I know that a number of camps have put out their numbers, but really and truly, if everybody who put out their number was accurate, our membership would have to be around 900,000, because we also sold very strong numbers, and our numbers are even stronger than in 2020. I just don't want to weigh into that numbers game, because I don't think it's productive, because it really rests on who the members think will bring this party forward, will unite this party, unite this country, and bring in new Conservatives into the fold. And I believe I'm the best person to do that.
Now, you were born in Jamaica, immigrated to Canada at the tender age of 5, and you grew up in East York in Ontario. You have a law degree and PhD in international law, and you're a Bible-believing Christian, correct?
Well, I think, isn't that the only type of Christian that there is? I don't know that a Christian could not believe in the Bible and then consider themselves a Christian. So I would agree with you on that.
So how has your faith really played a role in defining who Dr. Leslyn Lewis really is?
I think that my faith has enabled me to be more compassionate and to recognize that we were all this part of the same family, the human family, and that we, no matter who we are, we deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and love. And so I look at even government policies as making sure that we are there for the most vulnerable, being there for the people who are in need, and making sure that our policies not only uplift our nation and prosper our nation, but that the social fabric of our society is also held together.
Now, how would you really stick up for social conservatives should you become leader?
Well, I think it's important to stick up for all conservatives, for all Canadians. And as I said, I think the social fabric of our nation is very, very important. It's one thing to have a vibrant economic nation, but if we see that parents are losing their rights to raise their children in accordance with their values, if we see that families are being strained, if we see that young people have no desire to, or just losing hope in being able to even move out of their parents' home and own a home, if we see that families are breaking up, if we see that drug addiction is just rampant within our society, and if we look at the brokenness in our society and we don't find ways to look at or to work together to fixing that, then I don't think that we have a really vibrant, productive society. We need to ensure that the most vulnerable, those who are in need, whether it's a pregnant woman who may decide that she wants to keep her child, she may not want to keep her child, she may want to give it up for adoption, and she needs help getting through that pregnancy, to support pregnancy care centers. So I think that we have to ensure that all aspects of our society are strong.
So if you were to become leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, would you reopen the abortion debate?
I don't believe that debate has ever been closed. I believe in a democracy where we can debate any issues. And I believe in a democracy where not everybody has to agree with me, but I should be free to be able to discuss my perspective without being demonized and without being labeled and without being ostracized. So I think it's very, very important that we move away from this woke cancel culture narrative where we say we're closing off discussions on any topics, because what happens then is you create fringe movements that are outside of society. And we want to be able to bring people into the fold and have conversations about how we progress as a society and as a nation.
So Dr. Lewis, where do you stand on euthanasia?
I'm very concerned. And years ago, we spoke about the slippery slope, and many people said that we were exaggerating. And now I'm very, very concerned. A few weeks ago, there was a woman, relatively young woman, who was unable to get housing because she had a disability. And she felt that because she couldn't get subsidized housing, that she was going to seek to end her life. And our government, we helped her to do that. And I think that that is wrong, that we could provide an out for a person to end their life, but we can't provide housing. And so this is where we have taken euthanasia and our MAID legislation to the point where even our most vulnerable are at risk, because now it's potentially going to be extended to individuals such as teenagers who have mental health issues. And those are people that are in need of love and protection. And yet we're saying that what we are willing to do for them is to take their life rather than give them the help and the resources that they need to have a vibrant life.
A number of government restrictions are finally coming to an end. Why do you think it took the Trudeau Liberals so long to act when so many other countries around the world loosened their restrictions months ago?
I think that they got used to being able to rule by decree and mandates, and that somehow they forgot that we have a constitution and a charter of rights, and that some of the things that they were doing were abridging that charter, were infringing upon Canadians' right, the right to peaceful assembly, the right of the freedom of expression and freedom of mobility. When we can see that a government can invoke an act like the Emergencies Act to freeze people's property during a protest and to confiscate people's property, we know that this is a government that has gone too far, that believes that they have the power to control Canadians and that they are not answerable to Canadians. They forgot that they work for the people. And I think that that was the problem, that they were so entrenched and that they just kept holding on to that power. And finally, they realized that they were on the fringe and that people would no longer tolerate that. And all the other countries had moved along. And I think that they were shamed into making that decision. And I'm glad that they eventually did.
So, Dr. Lewis, as we slowly make our way out of the pandemic, what would you like to see the government do to help our economy get back on track?
Well, I think that we have realized that some of our policies were very short-sighted. Right now, we are importing 555,000 barrels of oil a day, largely from dictatorship regimes. Yet we have the third largest accessible oil reserves on the planet. If we had built pipelines to transport our products through the most environmentally efficient way of doing so is through pipelines rather than through trucks and on trains, we would have been able to get our products to Tidewater, even sell some of our products abroad. In Europe right now, 40% of the oil comes from Russia. And we would have been able to offset that through our liquefied natural gas. We would have been able to sell our products abroad to offset even some of the industries, the countries that rely on coal. And we have been very short-sighted because those revenues could have been repatriated back to our country to invest in our infrastructure and to pay down our debt. Right now, we have a $1.3 trillion debt, which we are spending millions a day just to service that debt. Each Canadian owes $40,000 even before they start school. They owe a $40,000 share of that debt. We need to pay down our debt, and we need to bring our fiscal balance in order to the point where we are no longer relying on deficit spending. And that means investing in our natural resource sector. It means bringing our supply chains home, producing more within our country than we're consuming.
So the Trudeau Liberals have made life very difficult for many here in our energy sector. If you were to become CPC leader and the potentially Prime Minister, what would you do to help more of Alberta's oil and gas get to market? Maybe cancel Bill C-69?
Yes, absolutely. That would need to be canceled along with the recent C-48, because we cannot have a nation, the nation with the third largest accessible oil reserves on the planet, that has legislation that favors foreign oil production over local oil production. We need to ensure that we can develop our natural resources. It not only benefits Canada as a whole, we have First Nations communities that are engaged in resource sharing agreements with our government that will enrich those reserves, that will take those reserves out of poverty and create wealth within those reserves. Many of those First Nations communities have said that they don't want a handout. They want to be able to enrich their own communities and to develop infrastructure on their communities. And Canadians also want that too. We want to be able to uplift ourselves and rebound out of COVID. And one way of doing that is to start developing our natural resources, because for every resource job that's created, there are 7 splinter jobs created all around the country, whether they're in the steel industry, whether they're in the banking industry, in the transportation industry, in the resource development industry. These industries all benefit from our oil and gas sector.
Now, here in southwestern Alberta, we rely heavily on the agriculture sector. What help would you like to see for our farmers and ranchers, who many would argue are the bread and butter to our economy?
I think it's very important that we recognize that our policies do directly affect the food that gets on our table. And when we have farmers who ordered fertilizer from last year and had their fixed budget for this year based upon those fertilizer costs, and our government imposed a 35% tariffs on the fertilizer that was ordered from last year, it really offsets, it really, the balance and the budget that they have set to produce the crops for this year is completely off. And they're going to pass those costs on to consumers. So we need to recognize that our policies do have an impact on the cost of food that gets on our table. We also need to invest in those industries and make sure that even our environmental policies, that they're not negatively impacting on those industries. For example, in the agricultural sector, they have to pay carbon tax to dry their crops, but yet they don't get credit for carbon sequestration that they produced while producing their crops. So we need to ensure that our policies, especially in the area of the environment, also recognize the contributions of our agricultural sector.
Many Albertans are simply frustrated with Ottawa and the federal Liberals, and there's more and more talk of separation's been growing here in the West. How would you approach the Alberta separatists? A number of Albertans feel quite isolated from Ottawa.
Well, I would let them know that we want to work with them and that we have a mutual goal of keeping this country together, uniting this country, and making sure that every region's voice is heard. We understand that the West has unique issues that are pertinent to them. And I recognize that our centralized government has taken the West for granted. I recognize in issues and in regulations like Bill C-48 and Bill C-69 that those regulations penalize the West and actually put handcuffs on them to develop their natural resources. And so I would work together with the separatists and make sure that we have policies that will ensure that the West thrives, because when the West thrives, so does the rest of Canada.
Amen to that. Dr. Leslyn Lewis, CPC leadership candidate, thanks so much for joining us today from Ontario.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
The COVID-19 pandemic really shook many components of our daily lives. Everything from politics to civil rights to spending time in the park was really affected by it. Some even say that our faith in the Canadian healthcare system has also been damaged. Even before the pandemic, many were saying that Western medicine of Alberta Health is a broken system. But what are the alternatives? Are there really any? Today we're joined by Cami Tanner of Urban Apothecary here in Lethbridge, who maybe has some answers to some of these questions. Cami, welcome to Bridge City News.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, Cami, you have a vision of natural health that may be a little bit different from what we're accustomed to here in Canada. Can you explain what that vision really is?
Yeah, we have opened up a shop that brings in a lot of natural products to help heal the body. Things like herbs and mushrooms that are grown in nature that work to really heal different problems within the body.
I'm even looking behind you there. You've got a few different, maybe some licorice and some, what else have you got behind you there?
We've got some mugwort, we've got chamomile, we have a whole range of different herbs. It almost seems like a little Harry Potter in here, but it's fun.
Now, do you believe that there's a natural remedy for many human ailments or diseases?
Absolutely. There's a number of things that are grown naturally that work to heal the body. We always look at, our body was grown and created from the elements of the earth, and so are the plants. And they work in harmony with each other.
Now, can you really explain how you got into this aspect of health?
Absolutely. I've always been a big believer in growing things yourself, growing your own garden, because not only is it more nutritious for you, it tastes better and it's healthier than things that you're buying from even just the grocery store. And so we have worked to study more and more about plants, starting from that basic level of growing our own garden and healthy eating that way, to the whole medicinal aspect of plants and how they work with the body.
So do you think more Canadians nowadays, Cami, are actually growing their own food and having bigger gardens, especially during the pandemic?
Absolutely, especially since the pandemic. And now with grocery store prices rising, we find even more and more people are wanting to grow their own food, be more self-sufficient, and know exactly how their food is grown and where it's coming from.
So from your experience, which vegetables do you think have some of the highest nutrients and some of the best vitamins to help us in our daily health routines?
Ooh, that's a big question because so many different plants have so many different constituents that grow. But some of my favorites are things that we call adaptogens. So they go into the body and they don't just heal one thing, but they adapt to the body of different problems. So if you're having memory loss, let's go help heal that. If you're having high blood pressure, cholesterol, some of those would include mucuna, ashwagandha, lucuma, different herbs like that.
So how about for memory loss then? What would you recommend?
We do lion's mane mushroom. That is one of the highest level of helping heal the brain. There are studies that have actually been done on lion's mane mushroom with people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and actually reversing those symptoms, even Parkinson's.
Wow. Now, would your ideas toward health be more aligned with traditional Eastern medicine? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. They are the masters at mushrooms and herbs for healing the body because they believe that it's not just a physical healing, but a spiritual healing as well. Everything works harmoniously with each other. Western medicine seems to be more pharmaceutical based.
You know what's interesting though? I love mushrooms myself and I can't get enough of them, especially on pizzas and my salads. You know, it really doesn't portobello mushrooms, I love them. But many of my family can't stand mushrooms. They're always picking them off all the time and they want to get rid of them. So are there any alternatives as opposed to the mushrooms for those in my family who really can't stand being a fun guy or a fun girl with these mushrooms?
There are different alternatives, both in herb and then the form that you take them. So we get a lot of people that come in here that cannot stand mushrooms either. But if you're doing it in a tincture form, which is just a dropper full of an extraction of the mushroom, it's much easier to take, and then you're not dealing with texture issues either.
Are all mushrooms created equally, or do some have better components when it comes to helping us heal?
All mushrooms are very healing, but mushrooms have different healing properties and aspects to it. Like I said, lion's mane is for the brain. Reishi mushroom is really good for helping with stress and anxiety and also for liver support function. So there are hundreds of varieties of mushrooms. They all do their own special thing and unique thing to the body.
So Cami, do you personally feel that our current healthcare system may be a little broken or missing some very important elements?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at anywhere else where the medical schools are teaching in the world, and they really do a 50-50 education basis of both pharmaceutical and plant healing, where in Western medication, it's 100% pharmaceutical based. And so, you know, we really are missing out on some beautiful healing aspects that are so much more beneficial to the body than what we're normally used to in Western medical society.
Why do you think it is a lot of times the naturopaths don't get the recognition or respect they deserve?
I think we've just, and not to say there's anything wrong with, you know, medical system. Well, let's just say there's a lot of people that think that naturopaths are just hocus pocus and that they've just put blind faith in the medical system in pharmaceuticals and not really doing their background and education for themselves on how those really affect the body and how they really heal or treat.
How about some vegetables that may help with during the COVID-19 pandemic and help to maybe not necessarily heal, but maybe help offset some of the symptoms people suffering from severe viruses?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of plants out there that are antiseptic, that help support the immune system. Like shiitake mushrooms are a really great one for helping with immunity. And there are things that we can take both to increase our adrenal system, our immunity, and symptoms of having contracted the COVID-19 virus, as well as other psychological problems with depression and things like that that come from isolation during the pandemic.
And a lot of these products are safe for all age demographics, not necessarily just middle-aged people like myself, but maybe seniors and children as well?
We always recommend that with children, I mean, smaller doses always, but we always like to ask people to go to their natural paths and get their advice, especially when it comes to children, because you know, we never know how with the growing bodies, how they may react to it. So we always like to just get the natural paths recommendations when it comes to that, but always smaller doses for sure.
You know, I have a lot of friends and family as well that suffer from insomnia, sleep deprivation. Is there anything that can really help them naturally in that regard?
Absolutely. We have a lot of those things. Like I said, reishi mushroom is really, really great, as well as ashwagandha. Anytime people come into the store and they say, oh, I have this problem or I have this problem, we always go, oh, we've got a mushroom for that. And there truly is a mushroom for just about every problem that the body can go through.
Now, do you feel that there is a way for families to be healthier and happier through natural ways outside of Western medical philosophy? Let's look at the big picture here, Cami.
I mean, one of the easiest things is growing a garden. Start growing your own food naturally. You're growing it and eating it right off the vine, straight out of the garden, so you're not dealing with respiration process or travel time from growing it in different areas and having it transported. You're getting the maximum amount of nutrients. Plus, going out and getting some sunshine and vitamin D is one of the healthiest things you can do. And those are simple things.
Yeah, the vitamin D and a little bit of exercise, which is good for the heart as well, right? Taking your dog for a walk, going for a bit of a run, or just a walk around the neighborhood, right? Something very simple like that can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Now, can you talk a bit about the doctrine of signature? What is it exactly?
Yeah, that is looking at different plants that replicate different parts of the body and healing that part of the body. So a lot of things that we also like to look and utilize is even flower essences. So you look at echinacea, for example, it looks like a shield. So when you're taking echinacea, that shields the body. It protects the body.
That's interesting. Now, would you recommend having raw vegetables as opposed to cooking them? Or sometimes is it more beneficial to cook the vegetables to release maybe some of the oxidants, some of the healing properties within the vegetable itself?
There are some things like tomatoes where they are more beneficial when they're cooked, but for the most part, you should be eating almost a 50% raw diet. Your body works better with raw vegetables than it does cooked vegetables, because when you're eating cooked food, it actually changes the molecular structure of the plant, and your body starts to look at that as an invader of the body. And so it'll actually increase the immune system and the white blood count cell to go and attack that food. And so when it's eat in a raw form, it's a more natural form. The way that your body is more natural. So it will utilize it more beneficial.
Now, Cami, let's dig a little bit deeper into plants for health. The Bible talks about the balm of Gilead. Can you talk about where this plant actually comes from and how beneficial it is?
Those are actually the pods from like the balsam poplar tree and a black cottonwood tree. And it's the sticky resin that comes off of those pods that is turned into a balm or a salve used for healing. The Gilead comes from the actual location of where that originated from. But it helps with anything from healing aspect to inflammation to pain.
Also, people suffering from arthritis as well, or maybe have an injury, something is swollen with the joint. May that help in that regard too?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, here in Southern Alberta, agriculture is a key industry. Are there growers in Southern Alberta who supply what you and Tony use when helping other people?
There are. I mean, you can look at a lot of like the herb aspect. Peppermint, mint, basil. There's a lot of herb growers here that you can utilize and that we utilize to use for some of the things that we make.
Now, with the hot Southern Alberta summer on the way, are there herbs or plants that can really help people beat the heat?
anything is in the mint family is probably your best bet, an easiest way to utilize for cooling us down. So peppermint tea, for example, making an iced tea out of peppermint will help cool you down, but it will also help you perspirate. So another healing aspect. So anything in the mint family, peppermint, catnip, even chamomile are great things to go for in the summer to cool you down.
Now, there's certain fruits or vegetables we should maybe steer clear of when it comes to maybe potential healing medicinal properties that we think, you know, oh, this is very beneficial, when in fact it might be more harmful?
There are herbs that you should be careful using if you don't know what you're doing, especially in large amounts. For example, pennypurse is an herb that can cause abortion. So, I mean, the people used to take those in the old days. And so that's one thing that you really, really want to be careful for. There's some are herbs that can become poisonous if not utilized in the right way.
And maybe some poisonous mushrooms out there as well that we need to steer clear of, right?
Yes. And the thing is, if you don't know what you're looking for, you can take the wrong one and be in a lot of trouble. So it's very important to really identify and know what you're looking for and be 100% sure before you ingest anything.
Now, Cam, you seem to be a big supporter of mushrooms. Do you find that more people are not only growing their gardens outside, but maybe growing mushrooms inside or maybe somewhere else in their homes?
You can grow mushrooms in your garden. There's great videos and things that you can watch to buy your own mycelium to grow your own mushroom gardens. We also do grow kits in the store where you can take a grow kit home and you just open up the package and spray it every day, and you'll start fruiting your own mushrooms in your house. And those have been really popular as of lately.
Cami Tanner is with Urban Apothecary here in Lethbridge. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.